Madridistas, welcome back to Madrid. Welcome back. Let me give you guys my thoughts on the match. What a crazy match last night for what is turning out to be a really, really crazy season all around. I want to talk to you guys about not just the match and players, but I want to talk to you about the crowd reactions because the Bernabeu is such an important part of Madridismo and such a great expression of the club, the values, and kind of where we are. But I think it's a great thermometer in terms of the state of mind of Madridismo right now, and it is a little bit concerning. This was, I think, a really erratic performance where this team is very frail. I find this team surprisingly insecure. I think there are a lot of tactical lapses and a lot of different issues that we need to address. So I'm very concerned, as I'm sure all of you are. But let me talk to you about the Celta match, which was about 5 matches in one, because this had a lot of different phases. But we'll talk about players as well. And at the end, I'll leave you with a very endearing interview with Endrick at the end of the match that I thought was really, really cool, talking about his relationship with Rudiger and the club, etc. So welcome back. Let's talk about this really, really crazy match and kind of where we are at the moment. Thanks for joining me. Let's get started. Madridistas, welcome back. Let's talk about the match last night, but let's talk about the crowd first because I found some of the reactions really, really interesting. You guys all know the Bernabeu is an absolutely brutal stadium. It's just brutal. Over the decades, I've seen the Bernabeu whistle. I can't think of anybody that's gotten away without at some point in their career being whistled by the Bernabeu. I saw Zizou get whistled when he first joined. I've seen Beckham get whistled, Figo, Raúl, Roberto Carlos, Marcelo, everybody, even Cristiano. I've seen Cristiano booed, which is just completely insane. But this is a very, very tricky stadium, and it's very quick to identify problems and very quick to get on top of people. And you can like it or dislike it, and it might be cruel, but this is who we are, and it's part of the DNA of the club. So it's always interesting to see the crowd reaction because I think it really does give you a glimpse into where Madridismo is at the moment. And so last night I thought it was interesting that at the beginning of the match when they read off the starting lineup, and of course afterwards they say, entrenador, the manager Carlo Ancelotti, there were whistles. There were whistles when Carlo's name was mentioned, and it was audible. It wasn't the entire stadium. I don't know what percentage I would attribute to it, but you heard whistles. And I think that is a reflection of the kind of lack of confidence that Madridistas have in Ancelotti at this point, despite the wonderful career that he has had with us and everything he's done. In terms of where we are now, your historic accomplishments in Madrid don't buy you a lot of credit. I think in other places you can live forever on 1 or 2 good seasons. Not here. Ancelotti is a guy that's won 2 Champions Leagues with us. He's been incredibly successful, but we just, the culture of the club is such that we identify problems very quickly and we're very quick to criticize and to put pressure on the players and the staff. So Ancelotti heard that. It must have been uncomfortable for him. But I did want to mention, because I don't know how much of it was caught on TV. The other thing I need to mention, okay, the guy that was whistled the most, and it was really hard to watch, was Tchouaméni. Now, Tchouaméni is not having a good year. He was disappointing in the defensive midfield position, and even as center back, he's been pretty bad. He was disastrous against Barça the other night. He's not having a very good year. But still, it's just hard to listen to these whistles. This is a young kid. He must be, 23 or something. It's just really hard to watch. But it takes a lot of personality to play through that because every time you touch the ball, tens of thousands of people are whistling at you. It's really hard to watch. You can argue that it's very cruel. I can tell you I found it uncomfortable even after all these years. But Tchouaméni, he improved towards the end of the match because he did have some good plays. The whistles did subside as the match went on, but boy, that was kind of tough to watch. Lucas Vázquez got some whistles as well. Not nearly the intensity of Tchouaméni, but they were audible. And I'm sure he's well aware of it. There were even some whistles at Vini, if you can believe that. This is this is how extreme this club is. But it's just part of the DNA of the club, it's hard to tell what comes first, the cart or the horse, because there's a reflexive relationship between the Bernabeu and the values of the club. Do the values determine how the crowd reacts, or is the crowd reaction what makes the DNA of the club? It's very hard to tell. These things are obviously interconnected, but this is what this club is like and what this club is about. And I am absolutely convinced that it's this extreme self-criticism that I think brings out the level of excellence that we've seen over the decades. But it is very special. I mean, I don't think you'll see this in any other stadium in the world to this degree. You can go to England and watch, Man U against Burnley, and Man U could be losing 0-3 in the first half, and the crowd will be like, come on. Man, not here. This is a very, very unforgiving crowd. But again, I think it's what breeds excellence. Another thing I had to mention, the Bernabeu loves Asensio. Man, boy, do they love Asensio. This kid gets applause every time he touches the ball. They chanted his name, on more than one occasion, the entire stadium. They love this kid. And what they love about him is his level of, his physical intensity. When Asensio goes in for a 50-50 ball, he does remind me a lot of Sergio Ramos. I mean, you remember Sergio Ramos? At every play, you think this guy is, he's suicidal. I mean, he's either going to win the ball or someone's going to die. But he came in, he had that unbelievable power. His headers would always scare me because I think this guy's going to crack his skull one day. Well, Asensio has that same, just, he doesn't compromise. He's just so resolute. He just goes in, balls out, 100%. Unfortunately, it's what provoked the penalty last night. But it's an attribute that the Bernabeu loves. They love physicality and intensity and sacrifice, and this kid has a lot of it. So it was really interesting to see how well received this kid is. But he was by far the love child last night. I mean, he got a lot of praise. But again, it's just interesting to know how the Bernabeu reacts because, like I say, this is part of our DNA and who we are, and it can be hard to watch, but it just is what it is. In terms of the match itself, it was kind of interesting because it's very hard to interpret. When you look at the lineup, it's very hard to draw conclusions because some of the, Ancelotti goes from making no changes to all of a sudden making a whole bunch at the same time. And it's very difficult to understand what the motivation behind all the changes. Now, in some cases, it's rest. Fede and Jude were probably on the bench because they need to rest. They've been overplayed this season. But in some cases, it could be punishment. Why was Camavinga or Rodrigo on the bench? Hard to say. Is it tactical? Maybe. Could it be Ancelotti responding to some of the criticisms in the media? Maybe. So, the lineup that we got last night was kind of weird and very hard to pinpoint exactly why, right? And I think there were a lot of different reasons behind the different players being there. But what you had was Lunin in goal, Lucas Vázquez and Fran on the wings as right back, left back, and Rudiger and Asensio as center backs. And it appears that Ancelotti has finally accepted that Asensio is probably a better center back than Tchouaméni. Tchouaméni returned to his sort of defensive midfield position, which is his traditional position with Modric and Ceballos. And then up front, you had the trio, but this time Brahim instead of Rodrigo on the right. So a slightly, unusual lineup, again, motivated, I'm sure, by a variety of things. Now, the match itself had a lot of different phases. This was like 5 matches in one because the first 20 minutes were the typical kind of dozy shit that we play when we play a 4-3-3. It was typical, right? Struggling to get the ball out of the back, very poor in possession, losing the ball very quickly, a lot of gaps in the middle of the pitch. When you're in possession and a player receives the ball, I mean, when you guys watch this on TV, hit the pause button when a player receives the ball. Every time a player receives the ball, hit the pause button And okay, where is everybody else? And when you're playing in possession, there should always be at least one or two players in support short, and there should always be the threat of a pass long. Those options should be available to any player that receives the ball when you're in possession. And we struggle with this when we play this 4-3-3. I mean, if you look at last night's night, there were gaps. Sometimes there were just gaps in the middle of the pitch. I'm like, where the hell is everyone? And somebody would receive, Ceballos would receive the ball, or Modric would sort of look around and like, where the fuck is everyone? And it's just the distance between the lines and the distance between the players is just too big. So in the first 20 minutes, we looked confused, sleepy, dozy, and tactically very poorly positioned on the pitch. The Mbappe goal finally came, and that kind of came out of nowhere. This club is being rescued this year. We're being rescued by the individual skill of our players, and we have ridiculous skill. There's no question about this. And that individual talent is what's saving us, because the collective play is shit this year. But Mbappe's goal, fantastic, a brilliant run, an even better finish because there was very little angle when he scored. Then we kind of went into the sort of next phase of the match, which is you're up by a goal, Celta pushes up a little, you start to look a little bit more comfortable, your possessions last a little longer, and it kind of started to look like a more predictable home match for Real Madrid against modest opposition. And then that second goal, brilliant play. This was a great pass by Kylian, a great pass by Brahim, and a very nice finish by Vini. And then this took us to the third phase of the match, which is, okay, let's have fun. This is kind of a done deal. The confidence level increases. Possessions are longer. We get a little bit more adventurous in attack. Just the energy picks up just by virtue of confidence, and sort of, you're just in a more positive place. And then the match changed again completely on the back of two simple mistakes. First, Camavinga. This is the second match that I've seen him make a mistake like this. This is a player you guys know I love. I love Camavinga. I'm not used to seeing him fuck up like this. I mean, this was a really bad mistake. Very little that I think Rudiger and Asensio could do in the first goal. Camavinga, just a very poor pass, giving the ball away. And then the second Celta goal was a mistake by Asensio, so the same reason that, we love him for the same things that we love about him can also be a liability. It was slightly unnecessary what he did in the penalty. He came in, that ball, the Celta player was never going to get to that ball. It was a very long first touch. There was no need to do this, but the ball was long gone by then, and Asensio just, sort of takes him out. This was unnecessarily aggressive. He's a young player. He's going to need to learn to temper this. I think it's great to play with this level of physicality and intensity, but you got to know when is when, and you can't play the same way in the box as you do in the middle of the pitch. And this is something that he's going to have to learn. And then, after the 2-2, we went into the next phase of the match, which again, completely different. And this was the panic, holy shit phase, which is where you're really just appealing to heroics, because at this point, you're panicking, you don't know what the hell happened, how could you lose control of the match so quickly, so innocuously, but there you are, 2-2, having to play extra time at home against Celta, and a sense of panic, you could just breathe it everywhere, and this is a part of the match where strategy and tactics just go out the window. By the way, after the changes, and you had Arda and Endrick come in, the lineup was unrecognizable. I mean, tactically, it was completely unrecognizable. At this point, the game broke apart. You have no idea what the hell Real Madrid is trying to do tactically. You're really just appealing to courage, bravery, balls, intensity, and physicality. Like, you're really just playing with your heart in those situations. And this is something that Real Madrid can always rely on. One of the reasons why the Barca match was so disappointing is that we didn't show that. We didn't show those teeth that make us so unique and special, because the one thing Real Madrid never loses is its faith and its belief, and the intensity that comes with that belief. And last night we did see it. It was like, okay, I don't know how we got here, but we have to get out of this. And that sort of courage and bravery is what salvaged the game in the end. So it's not, we shouldn't have to suffer like this against Celta in a home match. It's unbelievable that was the case. The match was finally resolved with a beautiful blast by Endrick, who, had a few unfortunate touches in the match, but boy, does this kid have a couple of guns. This kid can shoot with his left and his right with so much power. And his goal, much like Fede's goal, to put that much power on a ball when you're not running up to the ball is very difficult to do. I mean, to put that much power on a ball when you're standing still is extremely hard to do. And I think Endrick has exceptional power in his shots. And so, Endrick scores the first one. Same can be said about Fede. Fede's right foot is just something from another planet. He was literally standing when he hit that ball. But when you watch it in real time, the power and the speed that he put into that shot was just, I don't know how he does it. We've all played. I don't know how he does it. Absolutely extraordinary. And then the final goal, of course, was a very cheeky little backheel by Enric, kind of reminiscent of that Cristiano goal against Rayo Vallecano a few years ago. So we salvaged the match, and it was again a very crazy match with a lot of different phases to it. And like I say, it isn't. We shouldn't have to suffer this much against a team like Celta, and the Bernabeu is really on guard because we're not very happy this year, and with the quality of players that we have. Look, it's just unforgivable to play this way because, and you have to say it's down to Carlo because I mean the quality of the players is undeniable, but he's just not gluing them, piecing them together this year the way he should. My conclusions, I'll talk a little bit about players and then just a few final conclusions. Look, Lunin had a couple of good saves, great. He does irritate me sometimes because he takes a really long time to get the ball out and into play. Sometimes you find yourself going, what are you doing? Let's go. What are you waiting for? So sometimes he just sits there with the ball at his feet and you're like, come on, what are you waiting for? So he can be a little bit irritating. Some of his passes also from goal are very inaccurate. He had a couple of stray passes that was like, what was that? So I think Lunin needs to work on that, but he did have a couple of good saves. Lucas Vázquez and Fran, what can I say? So-so. Bit of good, bit of bad. Fran put a lot of energy into the match and ran a lot, but I think they were sort of so-so. I think Rudiger and Asensio were much more solid than the left and right backs. I think they were quite. I don't know to what extent you can blame them for the goals, but I think Asensio and Rudiger play well together. And Asensio, I don't know, somehow gives me more security, more confidence back there than Tchouaméni, which is unbelievable considering how young this kid is. But I think they played quite well. Ceballos and Modric, let me say this. I don't think they had a poor match, actually. I don't think that either of them played poorly. It's just that they were dealing with the strategic weaknesses that come with a 4-3-3 because, when they have the ball, they're very alone. They don't have accompaniment. The next player is just a bit too far away. And so I don't think that they played poorly. I just think that when you're playing a 4-3-3, there's just not enough glue between these players. So I think that it was more the tactics that betrayed them more than their efforts individually. And Tchouaméni, I thought, okay, I don't know how he finished the match because when you have that many people whistling at you, I don't know how the kid doesn't break down and cry because, I mean, it's brutal to watch. But he stuck through, he stuck through it. He made a few mistakes at the beginning of the match, but as the match went on, I think his performance improved. I don't know. I feel like I want to encourage Tchouaméni because what he went through last night was really hard to watch. Vini, I thought Vini was really flat last night. He always has this explosive power, always has this high energy and wants to destabilize, but last night it wasn't really there. He looked a bit slow to me. He looked a bit flat. I don't know. It definitely wasn't his night. I found him a bit slow, a bit doubtful, a little bit insecure. He wasn't really taking players on the way he usually does. He wasn't as explosive as he usually is. So I don't think it was a mistake to sit him towards the end of the match. Brahim, again, is a wonderful player and always gives 110%, but he didn't make as much of a difference as he has on other occasions. It wasn't really working as well as on other occasions. So Brahim, I thought, was okay. Kylian, I think Kylian's really improving. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Tell me what you think in the comment section. I think Kylian is really improving. When this guy, there's one thing that we cannot question at all, and that's his quality. I mean, this guy dribbles at full speed it's unbelievable the way this guy turns and spins. He's technically unbelievable. This is an incredible player, and he is starting to wake up, and he's starting to look like the Kylian that we all remember, who was, I mean, he was impossible to stop. I mean, Kylian for the last few years was just incredible, and we're starting to see that again. And I'm really encouraged by Kylian, his attitude. He's working really hard, and he's being very patient, but he's, things are starting to work out. The dribbles are starting to work. He's starting to find, space. He's feeling a bit more comfortable, a bit more, I think in the first few months, Kylian looked like he was suffering from a lot of anxiety. He just felt really kind of tense to me, a little bit cold, a little bit frozen, a little uncertain. He looks a lot looser now. He looks a lot freer now, a little bit more adventurous, and things are starting to work. Those dribbles that wouldn't work before are starting to work. So I'm very encouraged by Kylian. Another thing I'd say is I was really happy to see Endrick and Arda Güler on the pitch. These two kids deserve to play more. I really do think they need to play more. With Endrick, what I'll say is that he did miss a couple of passes. He was a little bit imprecise in terms of play in the first few minutes on the pitch, but then he showed us what he's there for, right? To be in the right place at the right time and to put the ball in the back of the net. And this kid was born with it. This kid was born with the gene. He has a killer gene, and has an unbelievable power in both his left and right foot. I mean, this guy's gonna. I think we need to play more minutes. This kid has a lot to show us, and I get the feeling that there's just something there that we need to release, and he needs more minutes because I think this kid is special, and he just needs more opportunities to show it. And I think Carlo needs to do that. I was also incredibly happy to see Arda Güler playing. The one thing I will say to Arda, you're a wonderful player, and you're obviously incredibly intelligent, incredibly skillful. You're very intelligent. You have the sort of DNA of a number 10. The one thing that I would say is that he sometimes too often plays the simple ball, the obvious ball, the easy ball. I would like to see him be more adventurous. Take people on one-on-one. I think you did more of that when you first arrived than you are now. Like, I think at the beginning you were more willing to take risk. Now you seem to play the easy ball, the basic ball more often than not. And I think if you want more minutes, you need to be more daring, and you need to take people on, try to create danger. Take risk. You have the skill to do it, but I think you should. If you want to play more minutes, you have to do more than just the obvious. So I think he played well last night. I love him. He's a fabulous player. Again, he needs more minutes, and Carlo needs to be aware of that. But Arda, take more risk when you have the ball. Don't. I know you don't want to lose the ball, and possession is important, but you have the skill to take people on one-on-one, and I'd love to see you do that more often. In conclusion, where I think we are, I think this is a team that's lost confidence. They feel to me like a team that's lost a bit of confidence. They seem a little bit insecure at times, which goes completely against everything we are and stand for. I don't know to what extent the players trust Ancelotti anymore. You get the feeling that they're playing with doubt, and usually that's because they doubt what they've been told to do. Sometimes you doubt yourself, but sometimes you doubt your instructions. I don't know which is which in this case, but I get the feeling that, I don't know if they trust Carlo in the same way that they did, in previous years. I think this is a team, another thing I'll mention, this is a team that's extremely dependent on Fede and Jude. And boy, is it noticeable when they're not there. I mean, man, it is really, really noticeable. We have a Fede and Jude dependence in the middle of the pitch in terms of creating play that is really, really noteworthy. And it's a little bit worrisome because these are players that play with a lot of intensity. They play a lot of minutes, and they can get injured. It's a miracle they haven't so far because they really push themselves every match. And it concerns me because I think we are so dependent on Jude and Fede in both, defensive duties, but also in creating danger going forward. And that does worry me a little bit. I think we're fragile, like I mentioned. We're very fragile in the back, especially defensively. We're very soft. And I know that that's where the injuries have affected us the most, right? Alaba, Carvajal, Militao. I understand that. But still, this is Real Madrid, and we can't be that soft in the back. It really worries me. I know that this comes down primarily to the left back and right back positions, which we're going to be fixing over the summer. But it does worry me that we're so fragile in defense. It doesn't take a lot to cut through this defense. And I think might cost us a few trophies this season. And again, another thing I would mention is we just lose focus quickly. I think we tend to get demoralized quickly. I don't know. I find that we lose focus and intensity more easily than in other years. I don't know if I'm right about this or not. It could just be me being paranoid, but it's the sense that I get. And I'll just say that I think it's a miracle that we are where we are, considering how poorly we're playing. All the injuries, how poorly we're playing. It's a miracle that we're in contention in La Liga and in the Champions League, because it's just been a really poor, volatile year. I'm not expecting too much this year. I have to be honest with you guys. Last year nobody expected anything and we won the double. So with Real Madrid, you never know, but it's really hard to envision us. La Liga maybe. Champions League looks, I think, pretty impossible this year. So I don't know. Something needs to change, and I'm going to repeat my view on the Ancelotti issue. I think that unless something changes dramatically, I wouldn't get rid of him now. I would let him finish out the year. But if things don't improve tangibly in the next 3-4 months, I think that we should replace him, and that's my view. You can let me know what you think. Okay, I'm going to leave you guys with something kind of positive. There was an interview with Endrick after the match last night, and it was really cool. It was very endearing because he's a very young kid, and he has this kind of shy quality about him. It's very endearing. I mean, you almost feel like crying when you hear this kid speak. You can feel the incredible pressure that he's under, and he's so young. He's just a teenager, and it really, I don't know, it kind of melts your heart, because you can just imagine how hard this kid works. And in the interview, he said, I try so hard to work every single day, and I put everything into being able to have these opportunities. And he says, I'm really grateful to Rudiger, because Rudiger is on me every day in training, in every match. Rudiger is always on me, pushing me forward, pushing me more and more. He never compliments me. He says, Rudiger never compliments me. He says, to get a compliment out of anybody in this club is impossible, because, the standard is so high and the bar is set so high. He says, but he loves that Rudiger is there, kind of mentoring him and teaching him the values of the club, and working constantly and always striving for more, and never getting down despite not playing many minutes, etc. But it was very endearing, and I think that he really, I think, showed that he understands the DNA of this club, and that it's not easy to get minutes here. He understands where he is, and that the only answer is just to work harder and harder, and to keep trying, and to put on his best whenever he gets minutes, to try to make the best of it. So he really understands the humility and the work that it takes to be a Real Madrid player. And thank you to Rudiger for being there to mentor him, because I think this kid is going to give us a lot in the future. So anyway, those are my thoughts on this match. Really tricky season, insane match. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. But anyway, that's what I thought. Thanks for joining me. As always, love you guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll see you guys in the next video. And as always, a la Madrid.